So the Ravens are good. That's a newsflash, right? uh, you have to go back to like 2015 to find a Ravens defense that wasn't ranked in the top 10 in DVOA. They were 22nd that year, which sounds about right because they were 5-11. It was the last time they had a losing record. But since then, it's been 6-4, 4, 5, and 9 last season. And they broke down kind of even. They were 10th against the pass and 12th against the run. But we're going to focus a little more on pass defense today because that's where the biggest changes happened for the Ravens this offseason, at least their biggest losses in free agency. Edge Yannick Ngakoue, who played 11 games with them last season, he signed with the Raiders. Matthew Judon signed with the Patriots. And another edge, Jihad Ward, signed with the Jaguars. Those three guys were 1st, 4th, and 7th in pressures for the Ravens last season. Judon was first. He had 46. That included a team high 7 sacks. And Ngakoue had 28 pressures, again, in just 11 games with them. And he had 3 sacks. Ward wasn't really on the field to get pressure on the quarterback. He's more of your sure tackler, solid against the run kind of guy, not really a pass rush threat, but still he's a guy they lost. The Ravens re-signed edge rushers Pernell McPhee and Tyus Bowser, who were actually 2nd and 3rd in pressure. So even though they lost, Ngakoue and Judon, they still retained 2 guys who were very important to what they were doing up front. And they also got defensive tackle Derek Wolfe, who led all their interior linemen, actually all their linemen in overall in snaps. So that was kind of the bigger deal for them, is actually retaining talent instead of letting it all go out the door. But that's why the Ravens are kind of like the Browns right now, and that most analysts and reporters think that they need to add pass rush help this offseason, whether it's the draft or signing one of the guys who remain on the market like Jadeveon Clowney or older guys like Justin Houston, Melvin Ingram. Those guys are still out there. As for the rest of the defense, the Ravens really didn't see much change there. LJ Fort, I believe, is still a free agent, but they did extend the contract of cornerback Marlon Humphrey during the season, so he'll be back. They also have their rookies from last year at linebacker Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison, Marcus Peters, the ageless Jimmy Smith, and their safeties remain solid, Chuck Clark, Deshaun Elliott. So again, pass rush is really what's expected to be their target. And an interesting thing about that is the Ravens picked 27th in the first round, which is 1 spot behind the Browns. And when teams have the same record and reach the same level of the playoffs, they end up flipping spots throughout the draft. So in the first round, the Browns do pick right ahead of the Ravens, but then it's going to flip in the second round. The Ravens are going to go right ahead, and they're just going to keep going back and forth. So you basically have 2 teams who might be targeting an edge rusher at 26 and 27, which could lead to a situation where the Ravens want to trade and move ahead of the Browns. Or the Browns get scared and they broke down kind of even. They were 10th against the pass and 12th against the run. But we're going to focus a little more on pass defense today because that's where the biggest changes happened for the Ravens this offseason, at least their biggest losses in free agency. And hear that the Ravens are trying to trade up, so they trade up. It's basically 2 teams possibly targeting the same thing. So that's something to think about as you go into the draft, especially if neither team adds one of those guys who are still on the market.
Baltimore leads the NFL in comp picks received since its inception. I think they've had something like 80, which is 9 more than the next closest team. They're expected to have 2 more fourth round picks coming in with the departure of Judon and Ngakoue. And that seems to be their bread and butter and their trend. They will replace these edge guys with comp picks. If only they had a record of drafting defensive players that they did at receiver, which I'll get into. They miss at that position a ton, but they do not miss on defense. It's also a team that pressures more than anyone in the league. It's really them in Pittsburgh, blitzing, I should say, bringing an extra defender, which makes up for, I guess, not really needing as elite as a edge rusher because you can generate that pressure in different ways. The strength of this defense lies in their defensive backs. They're physical, they play press man, things I'm sure Scott will talk about. But when it comes to edge rusher and how they build this defense, I think they are extremely comfortable cultivating their own talent, finding it in the draft, and then playing press man coverage and blitzing, creating chaos. And it's been working for a while now.
Yeah, when Baker's under pressure, he's not good. when last season, his passing grade under pressure, I'm scrolling here. He was 58th among quarterbacks, 41.0. If you want to just filter that for guys who are maybe more starters, he was 31st. So still, he's or at least had started half the games of the season. He was still 31st, so not good. But the thing is, he's gotten better at identifying the blitz. So
Mm-hmm.
getting pressure on him, that's great if you can do that, but he's making it more difficult because he's gotten better at that. And I already mentioned how he did in the first two games against the Ravens, but against the blitz as a rookie, he ranked 28th in passing grade. He jumped up to 8th in 2019 in passing grade against the blitz. Last season, moved back a little bit to 13th, still in the same range. He was like at 80.9 in 2019 and 77.3. But as with most things with Baker, you kind of have to split last season in two, right? Because it's clear that over the second half, he got better in a lot of ways. So if you do that with his grade against the blitz, over the final 8 regular season games, he actually ranked 3rd in passing grade
Wow.
against the blitz, 84.2. He faced 100 blitzes over that stretch, which ranked 5th most among quarterbacks. He completed 64% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. That isn't outstanding, but he did lead the NFL on what the PFF calls big time throws. He had 8 of those. And those are throws that show off your ball location. They usually deal with tight windows. It's generally throws that are further downfield. So he did well in that respect. He also had a passer rating of 104.4 against the blitz over the second half of the season, which again ranked 14th. But the important thing to point out here is only 2 quarterbacks ranked ahead of Baker faced as many blitzes as he did over that span. So over the second half of the season, there were very many quarterbacks who saw 100 or more blitzes. So all this is to say that the Ravens and their blitz happy defense going forward now might not have the same effect on Baker as it will on other quarterbacks. And I think the crowning achievement of Baker versus the blitz was actually in the wild card game against the Steelers.
Yeah.
They were 3rd in blitz percentage last season. The Ravens were 1st. But the Steelers blitzed Baker 20 times in that game. He completed 14 of 20 for 2 touchdowns. He was only under pressure 5 times. So he has gotten better against the blitz. You get better against the blitz, you decrease the amount of time you're under pressure. And, that's something that Baker obviously wants to do going into 2021 because you put anybody under pressure, they're not going to do as well. Tom Brady is not as good under pressure, obviously, as he is, when he's in a clean pocket. So doing that and being able to do that on a consistent basis against the Ravens, which he's going to see multiple times every year, and going forward, maybe even in the playoffs, is going to be a big deal for Baker.